Forget New Year's resolutions. I found that over the years, they just don't work. So over the past couple of years, instead of making resolutions, I've been focusing on making lifestyle changes to get me to my goals. So why do most New Year's resolutions fail? Well, there's a lot of reasons, but for me, the main ones in the past were my changes were too extreme or unrealistic, or I wasn't specific enough, or the plan that I was trying to execute was just not detailed enough to get me the results that I wanted. In this video, I'm going to go over some of the things that I used to do in the past that didn't work, and then I'm going to cover the things that I changed a couple of years ago that do work. I've spent so many years making the same New Year's resolution mistakes over and over again, and every year they would just end up in a failure. Because I always struggled to control my weight, my New Year's resolutions were always centered around weight loss or getting back into shape. When I look back on my weight fluctuations over the past few years, I can see that I would always gain weight during the holidays. The holidays were always a very difficult time for me to control my food. And a lot of times after a couple of weeks of eating a little too much, I would just tell myself, you know what? I'm just gonna start fresh after the new year and just enjoy myself for the holidays. And of course, this was the worst thing I could possibly do because it just gave me an excuse to continue eating more. And when it was time to get back on track, it just made it more difficult because I was out of control for so long. So each year, the resolution was always get back into shape, get back on track. And I usually did this by telling myself, I'm going to start with a super strict diet and I'm going to train like crazy and I'm just going to whip myself into shape. And I actually believe that once the new year hit, I could just switch on these new behaviors that somehow overnight I would become this person who can stick to a strict diet or a strict regimen and train perfectly, whatever that meant, and just whip myself into shape. Like somehow I would find this magical source of discipline or willpower and motivation. It was completely delusional. I mean, look at what I was trying to do. I was trying to go from one extreme to the other practically overnight. So usually after a few days of this, I was starting to eat again. I was getting off track. So of course this never worked. I was setting myself up to fail. I was trying to follow a plan with changes that were too extreme and too unrealistic. And it wasn't something that I could follow long term. The other reason why I had issues sticking with things is because I was not specific enough with the things that I wanted to change. Telling myself things like, I want to get fit, or I want to lose weight, or I want to get in shape is pretty much useless. It's not specific enough. And when something is not specific enough, you can't create a plan to attain that result. So I did this for years, over and over again. Eventually, I learned and I started to implement small, simple changes over time that helped me break out of the cycle. And that's what I encourage you to do now. Instead of making a resolution this year, I want you to think about making lifestyle changes that are realistic to you and that you can implement on a long-term basis. When I make changes now, I try to focus on developing long-term habits instead of looking for short-term fixes. And the changes I'm making, I'm trying to keep them simple and realistic. And that way I could build on them over time. You can still get to big goals that you set out for yourself. Just make sure that the changes that you're making are realistic and that they're being done in a realistic time frame. And that comes down to having a realistic plan. So when I create a plan now for myself, I've learned that it's better to focus on the process rather than the end result. For example, saying I want to lose 20 pounds, that's the end result. But you want to focus on what the process is to get there. What are the simple, realistic, specific steps that you need to take to get you there? What do you need to do on a daily or weekly basis to get that result? And that process needs to be specific. So once you define your overall goal, you then define the processes of how you're going to get to that goal. So this is the how often, when you're going to do something, and where you're going to do it. So for example, if we're talking about that 20-pound weight loss journey, it might be something like I'm going to start taking a walk 3 times a week on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 20 minutes at 5 p.m. for the next 8 weeks. Or you're going to bring a healthier lunch to work 4 out of the 5 days instead of going to the fast food restaurant. Or maybe that processed snack that you have every day, you're going to try to replace it with some type of healthier option. These should all be very simple things that you can stick to, and then over time you could build on them from there. And one really important change that I made was shifting from an all or nothing to an always do something mentality. This always doing something attitude is a great way to stay on track, especially when things are not perfect or the way you plan them. It's about making small, consistent choices that add up over time instead of letting setbacks or things derail your progress. For example, if I get busy and I don't have that much time to go to the gym, I've created shorter workouts for myself so that I could still get the training in. Or I have versions that I could do at home. Or if I need to go out to a restaurant, I can look at the healthier options on the menu so that I could stay on track and not feel like I'm ruining my progress. So, what's the takeaway here? Well, focus on lifestyle changes instead of making resolutions. And when you do that, the 2 main things are set small, realistic goals and focus more on the process instead of the result. Doing this has helped me find balance in my life, and it's allowed me to make health and fitness a part of my life as opposed to like a destination. And this also helps me know that if I get off track, it's okay. I just need to get back on track and keep moving forward. So if you want more information on how small changes can give you big results, check out this video here. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I had to say, click the like button, subscribe, stay active, and I'll see you in the next video. And I wish you all a happy new year.